Hello, everybody, and welcome to Take Your Time, Persona podcast where we play through Persona 3 Reload in real time along with the in-game calendar dates. My name is Tom Marks, joined as always by Jonathon Dornbush. Jonathan, how are you?
Tom, I am ready to discuss what I would consider the most exciting week in Persona 3 Reload history. I think it's fair to say the most eventful week of the game.
Why you gotta be like that?
No, we're gonna have fun. We have stuff to talk about. It'll be good. It's just one of those funny things where it is like we get past. I think I've really thought about, and I think it's a very fair criticism that you leveled last week of just the idea of like, this big event happened. We're not going to worry about it. We're just going to keep going with our life. There's no cool down introspective moment about it right now. And we're just cruising on through to Persona life.
Yeah. We almost died. Let's go give that girl more Red Bull.
Hell yeah. As we've said, we are proud sponsors of the Red Bull for Kids campaign here at Take Your Time.
God. Well, it is like a little bit of a less week, but there are some cool new things to talk about this week. We get to talk about the hangout with Junpei and kind of those team hangout sessions. We get to talk about the study groups that are in the game that came later, closer to the midterms week. And also, I have I messaged you this last night, Jonathan. I have such a story to end this week on.
I can't wait.
Not to leave this as a little cliffhanger teaser at the beginning of the episode, but man, my last day had I was on the ground laughing. It was,
oh my God.
It was very, and I think it's going to be very unique to my playthrough. So,
I can't wait.
I'm excited to tell you all about it. But before we get there, we got to do our confidant call out. This is a shout out to those at the Palace Ruler tier on our Patreon, patreon.com/takeyourtime, who support us at that highest tier. We can't thank you enough. It is truly an honor to have you. And so calling those folk out, it is Akechi is a Jelly Bean, Astral Clock Tower, Cameron C, Dallas, Damon, Dan F, Danimal Lover 01, Default Titus, Dexter, Goro Akechi, Keegan H, Michael V, Philip S, Sam K, Sarah M, Shade, Tekma, Willie Wang Wang, and Zachary L. Thank you so much. And if you want to support the show on Patreon, you can go to patreon.com/takeyourtime. We would very much appreciate it, but obviously only if you have the means to do so. We love you being here regardless. That said, we have a little bit more housekeeping of the pop quiz from last week. Is that correct?
We do indeed.
Yes. I'm sorry. I should also mention. I was going to mention this and I've totally forgot.
You're fine.
We've got our bonus episode for the month of May. If you are interested in becoming a patron, you get episodes a day early. You can get ad-free. You can get bonus episodes that we film each month. And the bonus episode we haven't filmed yet, so we're not entirely sure exactly what it's going to be this month yet, but that will be coming next week or sometime in the next week ish. So look out for that. And probably we will put up a poll again, maybe on the Patreon. That's what we did last month, was had some suggestions, let people weigh in on what they wanted to see. So we'll come up with some ideas for that very, very soon. Pop quiz last week. The question was very weird and stupid because it was kind of an odd week, which is, rabbits can't die from sadness, but what can they die from? This was spurred by a conversation between two students at GeckoCon in the morning of one of the days discussing rabbits. And one says, rabbits can die from sadness. And the other one says, that's not true, but they can die from X thing. Jonathan, did we have anybody who got this very stupid question right?
Well, I believe we did because, we do have a variety of answers. My answer was hunger.
Sure.
Was kind of where I was at. But the exact right answer we did get in from Eric T.
And that is?
Loss of appetite.
Correct.
Yes.
That is correct. I think... So this is the conversation before they start to mention Maiko, or that there was a little girl in the shrine all alone, and then you bring her food. So the conversation is, they say, rabbits can die from sadness, and the other student goes, okay, 1, you're not a rabbit. I guess this girl was sad. And 2, it's not sadness, but loss of appetite. So they lose their appetite when they're sad, then that causes them to die. And she says, no way, I thought for sure it was because of a broken heart. And then they say, oh, and speaking of, I saw an elementary school kid at the shrine alone. It's literally that much of a pivot. Yeah. So I guess this is tying into that, right? Because you learn that she's sad and lonely there and has no food or Red Bull, I guess. But I thought it was just such a funny little back and forth. I decided to highlight it.
Well, I mean, as we know, Red Bull is great for both kids and rabbits. There's no wrong way you can go by feeding
really
Red Bull.
Digging this hole that
it's
we're
just,
in.
I do like also that we've gone just immediately to Red Bull. Hashtag not an ad, not a sponsor. I don't think they would want to sponsor this conversation.
It's called Mad Bull is the stuff you're getting her.
Yeah. I always like, my thought whenever I'm watching or reading or playing something is like, what is always the litigiously close parody you can get where it's okay to be clearly parodying something specific versus having to be broader.
Yeah.
And just imagining the legal conversations where you have to explain why it's okay. It's always my favorite thing.
I like taking those close but not litigious brand names and just extending them out as far as they can go within that universe. So, like, is there a Mad Bull Flute Hog every year? Or, like, Mad Bull esports or, like, sports events and downhill derby races? I want to see all that.
Didn't they send, like, a rocket to the moon at some point? I feel
Red
like
Bull?
Red Bull. Yeah, I think they did like low orbit space stuff. So yeah,
Sure.
There's the Mad Bull space launch, but suddenly the shadows have attacked and you have to stop them. Yeah, no, I agree. It's fun to think about how much further it goes out into this world. But yeah.
Jonathan, you have one more thing before we jump in, yes?
I do. Tom, I need to announce something very important.
Is this an apology video all of a sudden?
Let me put up a thumbnail of me looking really sad and just say...
Yeah, you got to start with the... and then go into it. Yeah.
Hey, guys. What's up? No, I need to say that I know it's gonna... I hope you're all sitting down when I say this, but I said something incorrect last week.
Okay.
And as a result, I have decided to leave the show indefinitely.
Well, okay. What did you say?
Oh, I mentioned the fact, and I do appreciate that a few people called this out, and to avoid confusion for people going on, I had conflated what I remembered about requests as someone who has not played the older Persona games. Requests were in Persona 3 previously, but there are new requests. Some of the things around requests have changed. Let me pull up Shade in the Patreon actually put a very succinct, and I will just say, as I appreciate it, a polite call out, because, when you get stuff wrong on the internet, boy, do people love to pile on. I don't know if you've ever had that happen to you, Tom, but I sure have, and it sucks. But anyway, Shade said that we had mentioned Elizabeth's requests were new to Reload. They have been part of the game since the original. The full list of requests is different in every version of the game.
Gotcha.
And then actually mentioned one highlight, or one change they wanted to highlight, is an infamous group of 8 requests that were in both the S.E.E.S and portable versions of the game. They required you to speak with specific NPCs on specific days of the year. If you forgot to do so, the request became impossible to complete. In addition, neither of these games signposted who you needed to talk to or even indicated that those characters had new dialogue until you did start talking to them, and there was nothing to remind you to which day you needed to talk to them unless you went back to check your request list. In Reload, these requests are still present, but now they are not locked to specific days and the game tells you who to talk to.
Gotcha.
Is what Shade said. So I haven't looked at what that request list is, because on my first playthrough I actually didn't finish all of them. So just in case, didn't want to spoil any that I hadn't seen yet, but my goal is to do all the requests this time around. So
cool.
We can talk about them more as we get through, but I do appreciate the clarification there and also the great amount of information. Apologies for any confusion I caused. I do know we have a fair number of listeners who have played a version of Persona 3 before. I hope I can win your trust back.
Well, that's one of the things I do love.
No, I do appreciate
our audience is just so knowledgeable, and I do love that. So thank you for sharing the insight that y'all do in such a constructive way as well.
Yes, and again, and just like appreciate as Tom said, the constructiveness and the kindness with which you pointed out, because boy, have I been there where just a YouTube comment makes you feel like the smallest person in the world, but y'all out there have been wonderful to us. So thank you. I believe it was pointed out on YouTube kindly as well elsewhere. So thank you. to everyone who flagged that. But yeah, just wanted to mention to avoid confusion and to, say that I'll just never say a word on this show again.
Well, hosting is going to be tricky alone, but that's all right. We'll make it through. Moving on to the week, May 12th to May 17th. Jonathan's going to lean into this bit. I can already tell. Once again, as a reminder, we only did 6 days this week, and then we're doing 8 days next week because we wanted to, if we had done 7 days this week and 7 days next week, we would have started the first day of midterms. And as most people here can tell or noticed already, once you end the 17th, it just goes into midterms and does the whole thing automatically, and you can't actually stop in the middle of it. So we didn't want to do that. We did that a little bit in the Persona 5 Royal playthrough sometimes with little things, and it was just a little dumb and awkward, so we're avoiding it. Anyway, the 12th. The big thing here on the 12th is this introduction of these team hangouts where Junpei comes up to you at the beginning of the day and says, hey, we've never really hung out ever together, which is kind of goes towards what you were talking about last week, Jonathan, right? Of Junpei, or that you don't really know these people well yet, right? So he says, hey, we've never really hung out. Let's hang out after school. And so you can talk to him, and he has this little double exclamation point that I believe you mentioned a couple weeks ago in the show, and you can do a special little scene with him if you want, which I absolutely did.
Yeah, so it's a funny thing. I mention them because, and this is just how clearly things go in one ear and right out the other. I didn't remember that the game gives you a little pop-up that tells you to do these things when we were recording, because it had been a few months since I had played this portion. But as the game mentions, they're called linked episodes, and we'll go into it. But as you've noticed, it didn't start a confidant chain with Junpei. It doesn't. Right. It's a different format of a thing, and I really can't recommend enough doing these when they pop up, even if it feels like you are not progressing a social link as you should, or doing something else that maybe you feel like is important to, because these things typically are tied to that day. It's not, to my knowledge, at least with this one, I think there are a couple that may be a repeat, but you couldn't do this hangout with Junpei any day going forward.
Right.
So I think if you are really interested and invested in seeing how these characters relate to each other, which I assume you would be because it is kind of a big part of these games, it really matters to jump on these when you can. You do usually get benefits from them, but I just think there's also just really good character building and world building stuff that happens in them.
Yeah, I agree. And from the one I've seen so far, right? And I like that they've figured out this way to essentially give the team members confidant hangouts, despite their confidant being the fool, which is the whole team together. I think that's nice. It's a nice solution. As a side note here, I checked the network thing to see what everyone did. And there's one that says it was 100% of people hung out with Junpei on this time because it was the only thing, right? But then it still had 0% spent time with the old couple. And I usually it doesn't do that if you can't do it or no one did it. So maybe there was one person out there on the internet who did it. But I love the idea that they just twisted the knife of went out of their way specifically to tell you that no one hung out with that old couple today.
I have to assume it's a rounding margin of error where it's 0.01% of players do this, because to be fair, there were a couple days where I was let me test this out. And I missed an exclamation point thing. I was oh, I should not do that. I should just do them when they show up. But yeah, it could feel cruel if you think of it out of context. It is almost very funny. Oh, wow, you didn't hang out with the old couple? What's wrong with you? You monsters. God. But no, most people, I think, hung out with Junpei. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I did, of course, was hang out with Junpei at this fun scene at the arcade, right? Talking about taking inspiration from the arcade games and the movies and comics and things like that for moves that they can use in Tartarus. I was so excited that this might be like unlocking a tag team move or something like that, and then it didn't go that way, but that's fine. I just thought that's where it was leading. It also strikes me in this scene something that we've talked about previously of just how mean you can be to him.
I wrote that down too. Yeah.
The delta between, yeah, that's a great idea, this game is fun, and just you being like, what are you talking about, you loser? Like, it's nuts how absolutely mean to him. Unabashedly, not like teasing fun friends, just completely uninterested in being his friend, basically.
Yeah, no, there is not an easy middle ground there. It is, you can be pretty rude or pretty kind if you want to. I'm curious on that note, because I have a couple questions for you just in terms of like this as a device, because we are of course used to, and again, I know we talk about it a lot, but the Persona 5 version of this where you become social links with your party members pretty immediately. Like that is just a thing for 5's Ryuji and on and etc. Were you expecting that to happen at the end of this? What did it not happening, I guess, impact what you thought of the scene? Because to your point, it is interesting that you can kind of, obviously it won't change the game majorly, but you could come out of the scene not really friendly to Junpei.
Yeah, no, I didn't go into this with any expectations, I guess. I definitely didn't go into this comparing it to similar scenes from 5 or anything like that. That wasn't really on my mind. No, I don't think it disappointed. I mean, obviously it would have been fun, right? Those things were cool, and that would be cool to have them this way, but you do get this reward of Junpei. The strength stat of Junpei's persona goes up by 3 at the end of it, which is a cool sort of different reward because those stats are, much easier to raise for your protagonist than they are for any of your party members generally. So it's cool. I liked that reward. I mean, that felt unique enough to me, I guess.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think, especially for this game where, and I don't know how you're feeling about it this way too, but especially knowing where the original falls in the context of Persona as a spin-off franchise from SMT as well.
Sure.
This game for me is much more mechanically focused on battles in a way that I enjoyed 5's battling system a lot, but it felt like a wider part of a larger tapestry where here it's like, if the battles don't work, if they're not fun, you're going to have a problem for a large part of the game. And so really thinking about this, I'm thinking about my Persona stats and my Persona lineup more than I ever did in Persona 5. Just because it can really make or break the enjoyment of Charteris as you go through. So it is nice to have something that so directly benefits your teammates' persona in this way. But yeah, sure. I just think it's an interesting scene that further plays off of the full moon operation, where we kind of get the sense that Junpei wants to be the star.
Right.
He wants that spotlight a bit, but he wants to do his best, but that presents as someone who is like fighting for the spotlight here is kind of what we're learning about him a bit. So there's that struggle of wanting to do right, wanting to excel, but it can come across as almost not like star hungry, but just the attention is kind of the way he sees as the best path forward to do that.
Yeah, and it sets you up as rivals too, right? It starts to pit this little bit of like, oh, I'm gonna beat you, oh, I'll catch up to you. There's a little bit of that dynamic starting to go on. This is also the first scene, or not first scene, but I have been sort of unfairly calling Junpei Ryuji occasionally going throughout this, and I do think that you are starting to see more how that is not true, right? I knew it was not. I knew it was reductive, right? They're a similar-ish archetype, sort of, right? And that's kind of how it was reductive. But now you're getting a sense of who he is as a person, like you were saying, and sort of the unique nature of him and what he brings to the table. And I like that as well.
Yeah, I think the dynamic is already starting to show how it differentiates from Ryuji. But to your point, I don't think it's bad that they fall within the same archetypes, or that they are almost in conversation with each other as characters, because at the end of the day, you can find a lot of similar characters across a lot of studios or directors or writers bodies of work. You fall back on certain ideologies and thoughts of what you want to dig into as character types. But I think, yeah, as you're saying, already early enough, we're getting a different sense of Junpei. And I think I have a lot that I want to say about all of the characters, but I think that was definitely something that for those who have listened to our 5 playthrough, or if you haven't, go do that. Just go listen. Why not listen to both at the same time? I was very adamant about that. Like, my impression of Junpei on my first playthrough was very different from how I felt about him after our show run through. And already I'm starting to feel differently, good and bad, about some of the characters that we're interacting with already. So there'll be, I think, a lot of interesting stuff to talk about as we go through.
Yeah, I agree. So that was that little interaction. Later in the day, the products from the shopping channel arrive if you bought that. Those are those healing items, I believe. The jelly set, I think, is what it was.
I think so, yeah.
Gets you some healing items. Yukari mentions you can't go to Tartarus today. Or Yukari mentions she can't go to Tartarus. So if you wanted to go to Tartarus, it would just be you and Junpei, which is also a really interesting thing to me, that I like that it's not just you can or cannot go. It's you could go, but she's not going to be there.
You might be missing the person you need, and having, knowing what Yukari is capable of, a pretty helpful team member, but you could grind if you want to for a bit.
Yeah. That evening, I just worked at the cafe because it had another urgent thing, so I figured, sure.
I did the same. Yeah, it's really hard in this early game, and I'm curious for people out there who are playing, when you get those urgent texts, do you avoid them? Just because, as we've talked about, money is scarce at this point in the game, and I think when you see those, it's really hard not to do that, knowing you'll get an extra monetary benefit, and the cafe helps your charm and your intelligence? Or
Courage.
Courage, thank you.
Yeah. We'll talk about this with the next day. So going into the 13th now, there's girls talking before you kind of get controlled. They're talking about studying at the library. This is where the game really, it's already been doing this a little bit, but now it's really going into overdrive of like, hey, make sure you've studied for midterms, right? So they mentioned that you can study at the library and it's more effective than if you were studying on your own or whatever. There's also a class talking about the Earth's rotation and discussing, there's a question that you can get right about or like put in your answer for about, I can't remember his name, but how that scientist discovered the Earth's rotation or measured the Earth's rotation using a pendulum, which is actually an experiment I've seen in person that I think is super, super cool. If anybody hasn't seen it, I think I saw it at the Exploratorium in San Francisco, if anybody's ever been there.
Yeah.
This very cool sort of museum kind of learning center thing. And it's this really cool experiment with the pendulum where they have this huge pendulum just swinging back and forth, but because the Earth rotates, the pendulum will change, right? So they have dominoes and it will set up in a circle around it, and eventually it will knock over all of the dominoes, right? Because it will have completely rotated, or the Earth will have rotated around it.
Is that this is a total tangent. Is that the Exploratorium on the Embarcadero? Is that what I'm thinking of?
It was not there when I saw that experiment.
Okay.
That was when it was still at Palace of Fine Arts. But
Gotcha.
Yes, it is now there.
Okay, cool. No, that I've been to the Embarcadero one, and it's fun to go. Science is cool. Who knew? But no, yeah, it's an interesting experiment. As you said, this is a total side tangent. I feel like it's a thing that's used in like a Dan Brown novel at some point. Like
probably
the Da Vinci Code you can only solve if you fall. I think it's Foucault or something like that. I think is the scientist. Anyway. I didn't pay attention during this class in school, so I apologize. Yeah. But yeah.
Gets you charm. That got me up to charm 2.
Nice. Congratulations.
From answering that pendulum question. And also, your charm goes from plain at 1 to unpolished at 2, which to me does not sound better than plain.
I mean, think of it this way. If you're plain, there's nothing to you. If you're unpolished, it means you're trying. It means you're working towards something is what's going on, but you're not refined yet enough for your charm.
I just like that the 2 for courage and
academics
and academics are like normal, fine, and then this one is unpolished.
Yeah, no, it's a funny differentiator there. I love seeing whatever name pops up because it feels like a slight half the time.
Yeah, it's a dig.
Yeah.
It's a backhand of compliments. So this day, what did you do for the afternoon? Because we can talk philosophy because I know you're going for the intelligence.
Sure.
Or have been.
I have, and so as I said last week, if I decided to redo some of the week, I would let you know. I did not do some of the week. I'll tell you when I hit the academics 3 because I did hit it before midterms, but I'll tell you when.
Cool. Okay.
So this afternoon,
my philosophy, to be clear, was prioritize confidants and spending time with confidants, and then intelligence or money around that after that.
Makes sense. I think at the end of the day, I did this out of a determination for myself because I missed it the first time to get first. Again, if you are at academics 2 for midterms, you're good.
Yeah. And I kind of I was already at 2, and I kind of gave up hope that I was going to get to 3. I was just sort of like, you know what? If I hit it, I hit it, whatever. But it's like, I'll keep putting into intelligence here and there, or academics here and there, but mostly I just want to prioritize.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The afternoon though, I decided not to do academics. I was like, let me risk it a little bit. I went to the mall to try to talk to the Gourmet King, who I have been able to reach contact with. I don't know if you did this week at all. Speak with him.
No.
Without spoiling it too much, when you go to him, his confidant doesn't start immediately. He quizzes you. And I, unfortunately, failed the quiz today. So I did that, didn't get to hang out with him. And instead, I went to hang out with the bookstore couple, and with just slight spoilers, I think you mentioned it last week, though, this was the confidant meeting where I met Bebe as well. So I was able to unlock that one for later on. But yeah, that was what I did for the afternoon. What about you?
I hung out with the olds. I bought a Persona. I did some Persona management and got a Hierophant, and then went and hung out with them and got up to rank 4. I think this was the one.
Nice.
And it was this, and I hung out with them twice. I got 2 rank ups with them this week, and both of these scenes, just to get it out of the way now, were like really quick. They were very, very, some of these are starting to get a little brief in the middle of the storyline, I think, which is not like terrible. It just was unexpected, maybe.
No, there's definitely some confidant hangs where you go, hey, how are you doing? Oh, I'm great. How are you? Great. It's wonderful to be here with you. Awesome. New level achieved. Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Pretty much.
All right.
Or like it'll be there to deliver like one line of important exposition and then make a few jokes, and that's basically it.
Yeah, pretty much. I will say though, I think I noticed it during this week, just something to call out that I do appreciate, partially because I'm forgetting how much 5 did it. I do like how many items you get from confidant hangouts. Like occasionally
they give you little gifts.
Yeah, you get little HP bonuses or just small items for use. It's just a nice benefit of things, especially when they feel short, to be like, oh, I got something out of this. That's nice. That's what friendships are for, to get things from each other.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Man, we've got some really good life lessons on this show.
I think so. I think people can come away with a firm grasp of leading a good, healthy life.
Anyway, that night, Junpei, back at the dorm, Junpei convinces Yukari to go to Tartarus if we want to. She says, fine, it's a good break, I guess. Because Junpei this whole week absolutely does not want to study at all. He has this really good line at one point about being like, so if I study, I can't remember what it is. It's like the best way to study is to make sure I'm like well rested and energetic, and to do that I gotta go do other things, so really I don't have time to study.
Yeah, you really get the sense this week of just how little Junpei cares about his schoolwork. That is just the furthest thing from that dude's mind. But yeah.
Another note, Akihiko tells you not to pull all-nighters because it's not worth it. You should study slowly, and that's true. All-nighters are bad for you and generally make you study worse than if you had just studied more. Regularly.
Look, I led a lame life, but if I had a test on Thursday, I started studying Monday night and slowly did chunks every night, and I felt a lot better than the people who studied all night Wednesday. Did they get to hang out with each other more, and was I alone in my room? Yeah, sure, whatever, but look where I am now. I'm alone in my room, but I'm talking to someone. So it's
only ever pulled, in college, I only ever pulled one all-nighter, and it was I was a design major, so it was to build a papercraft model.
Oh my God.
Of a toilet. And I spent all night, it was the only time I ever worked on something until the sun came up, was making a papercraft model of a toilet for an assignment.
Of a toilet. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Specifically, I mean, do you want me to get into this?
That feels real metaphorical. I mean, please, because it feels just really...
This is very hoity-toity art student, college student. It was for a 3D, like a modeling, or not, it was like a modeling class, and it was kind of general modeling, so you could do different things. I chose to recreate, if you know Duchamp's fountain, is what it's called. It was this very controversial is the wrong word, but it lit the art world on fire. This artist named Duchamp put a urinal on its side and then signed it, and then put that in a museum. And it was that was sort of the point, was part of it was, criticizing the art world in general to a certain degree is a complex piece, but that, that's sort of it. And, so I decided to remodel it in 3D and then export that to a program called Pepakura that unfolded the 3D model into papercraft instructions, cut that out individually, and then recreate it in papercraft as an exercise of like taking this piece that is like notoriously known as a quote unquote lazy piece of art and putting as much effort into recreating it meticulously as I could. And then that was my assignment. I did pretty well, I think. I think I got like a good grade on that one.
And that was your overnight, like you did that just...
Yeah, I did that till the sun came up because I
That's amazing.
Waited way too long to do it.
I had a roommate in college who did a lot of all-nighters as like a music student. So he would be creating music at 3 a.m. and I'm like, man, I need to sleep. But the only all-nighter... Can I tell my one all-nighter story that I can think of?
Yeah.
So I didn't pull all-nighters for class in college. I pulled all-nighters when I worked at my school newspaper when I was an editor there. Because we worked on the newspaper after essentially like class hours were over. And we would work most nights until like 1, 2 a.m. on the paper. But for special issues, we worked on them until like 4 or 5 a.m. So it would be really funny. And I was going to school at NYU, so it was like downtown New York. And so it'd be so funny to leave the newspaper office at like 5 a.m. walking through Washington Square Park and just seeing kind of like people getting ready for work, people who were like students, just kind of a whole mix of interesting people at like 5 a.m. when the dusk was settling. But one morning, we had gone home early, but then had to like accidentally pull an all-nighter because there was an issue with the printing. So I had gone home at like 3 a.m., but then got a call at like 5 a.m. and we had to come back into the office. So it was like almost an all-nighter because we needed to fold it. It was supposed to go out that morning. And so we had to like properly fold and make the paper. So I was staying at a friend's dorm and walked through Washington Square Park. And as we were going, there was Carey Mulligan and Oscar Isaac were there because they were filming Inside Llewyn Davis. Which turned out to be like one of my favorite movies when I was in college. Like I absolutely love that film, but it was just so funny. We passed them by and I wasn't paying attention because it was 5 a.m. I was tired. I was upset. I had to go in for this. And one of my friends who was walking with me was just like, I think that's Carey Mulligan. I'm like, why is she just sitting on a bench at 5 a.m. in the fog? And then I saw the cameraman because it was a very small production, but yeah, that was very fun to see. And they'd be like, I was walking in the background there. I know that scene. Anyway.
I love that.
Yeah,
that's a good story. Anyway, don't pull all-nighters,
yeah,
people. Otherwise, you might meet Oscar Isaac.
Real shame in life. But no, generally, any other time I stayed up like for a long night, it always felt like regret the day after. Yeah.
So what did you actually do this night? I
stayed up all night. No, I went to the arcade to get my academics up because I was like,
oh, okay.
What can I do the most? I think there was I don't know if I didn't choose Wakatsu this night specifically or it was closed this night. Like it potentially was one of the nights it wasn't open. So I just went to the arcade. Again, I am trying to get my academics to 3 this week, so I was willing to spend the money, even though by the end of this week, between that and persona changes, I was feeling where you were last week. But yeah.
Right. I went to Tartarus.
Oh,
so
okay.
I wanted to go to Tartarus because I wanted some more money. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to see, what the changes were, what the new stuff was, what, happened in that new area, what the new area looked like, right? And we don't have to dig into all that right now, because I think we're probably going to have more reason to dig into it coming up. But I didn't do all of Tartarus because, again, I just wanted, I'm new to this game and I wanted to just experiment and try different things. And so I beat the first Guardian, and then I got to the second Guardian and then stopped because my SP was basically out. And I decided I'll go as far as I can with my SP, and then I won't spend SP items to get any further, basically. And just sort of have that natural end to wherever I was. And I'm glad I did, right? It got me. I ended up having like 30 grand by the time I was done selling everything. So yeah, it was worth doing. And there were some new things that we can, since you haven't dived back in, we don't have to go into them right now, but there were some new things that came up within that I enjoyed, and we can talk about on a later week.
Yeah, without spoiling too much, I did not go into Tartarus this week, just was focused on those grades, baby. But yeah, we'll have time for sure.
So the other reason that I didn't want to finish it was I had a hunch. I was like, so again, the Persona 5 mindset, I was assuming when we did the full moon, Akihiko would just join you immediately. And that's not what happened. And I said, okay, he's got to join you soon, so maybe he joins you after midterms. And then this week there's a conversation with Akihiko where he's like, I'm going to be back after midterms. And I was like, great, I'm glad I didn't just blow through Tartarus all at once.
Yeah, I think...
because then I can go back with him.
No, that's totally a good call. I do think the game gives you, and I truly would be curious to hear from a lot of more seasoned Persona 3 players, especially if they played earlier versions, of what their philosophy is for Tartarus, because I do feel like the game is designed in a way to make you say, hey, go in a couple times per area. Don't feel like you need to do blitz through all this in one night. And especially here, yeah, you're getting that sense of, oh, you don't have the party member you thought you were going to have. There's a reason to go back next time. Did you, I guess my only question would be, did you max out your major arcana cards for the night?
Yes.
Okay, good.
But not really intent-wise.
Okay.
I mean, I know that does that permanently upgrade them?
For the next time, essentially, it upgrades the rewards that you can get consistently. Okay. Yeah, so I don't know what the limit is on it or what the max is, but it is worth going in at least somewhat early and trying to max out Arcana card nights, because I do know it then gets you to that next level. But again, I don't know if it stops you at a certain point, like you can only up it twice or 3 times per full moon, or if there's a max number in total you can reach. I don't know.
Go every night, max it out every night.
Just keep going. I mean, hey, it's a good way to get money, I guess. But yeah. Good to know. But yeah, we'll talk about it more once I've gone through. And once we have Akihiko, cool. I think that'll be a really good reason to discuss more.
Yeah, definitely. Next day, I went and drank a creepy potion, and it gave me some courage, so that was nice. And then I sold the stuff, like I said. And then what did you do during the afternoon?
I didn't fail the Gourmet King's test today.
Hey!
And so, I couldn't wait for midterms, so I said, let me do a test now. And I was able to hang out with, as it mentions in the network page / we just have to talk about characters' names at some point, Suimitsu, forgive me, I'm not sure exact pronunciation, but I hung out with them, so I started that confidant link. And I won't go into any detail there since I know you haven't gotten there yet. But yeah.
Cool. Yeah, no, I still got it. I have a lot of catching up to do, but all of the students were busy this week, right? Because they're all studying for midterms, so you can't hang out with any of those students this week.
Yeah, he's a nice bonus way to get around that because he's always in the mall. So it's helpful.
This week I hung out with the old couple, or today I hung out with the old couple again. I got them up to rank 5. I think Maiko was also an option, but I didn't have any way to craft a hanged persona, and so I just decided not to do that. I just decided to stick with the one I had a persona with, even though I know Maiko is only available 3 days a week. I just said, whatever, it's fine.
You'll get there with them. I think there's enough time to hang out with them where it won't feel too much of a rush. I could be wrong for some people's perspective, but I think you'll be able to see that confidant link out, especially because, again, they're a non-school person, so it's easier to, when everyone from school is locked out, they're an option. But yeah,
right.
Makes sense.
That makes sense. And then did we share a dinner at Wakatsu tonight?
We did, my friend. Of course we did. Yeah, no, they were open tonight. I still don't have enough money for the Prodigy platter or whatever the higher end
Oh yeah,
thing
you need
is.
a bunch of charm
Or
for
charm. Yeah, I think you need level 3 charm maybe, but couldn't get that, so just had a good old brain power dinner.
Yeah, this is a really cheap way to get to like academics, which is nice.
Yeah, it's very helpful. But yeah, short and sweet.
Next day, 15th. The 15th is this first day that we get to the introduction of study groups in the evening, which is fun. We're going to talk about. There was a class talking about May sickness with a question about May blues. This one hit way too close to home because I was sick as a dog this weekend, and then there was a thing talking about May sickness, and I was like, oh, dang, they got me. But that's one of the fun parts about... Yeah, that's one of the fun parts about playing this game in real time, is that these things are actually sort of happening around you to some degree.
Yeah, I had such a funny moment where I was thinking about that. I think for something this week, it might have been the May Blues question, just to be like, oh, it is May while they're asking this. But I was having it's so silly, but a nostalgic feel for, and I know we've played the game so much already, but part of me was like, do I start up Persona 5 again? Because I really like playing Persona 5 at Christmas time when it's Christmas time in the game. There's just something very sweet and comforting about that in my brain.
Yeah, it's nice.
But yeah, no, it is. Honestly, that is one of the most fun aspects to me about this game, is to see the way like the real world parallels with the game, and to have those moments, I think, create such a fun interaction with the medium that you really don't get otherwise, unless it's totally Animal Crossing.
What did you do in the afternoon for today?
My phone died, so let me look. No, I spent time with the old couple. So,
okay.
Yeah, I think I'm one
Ping
confidant.
A little.
Yeah, but one behind where you are. But yeah, I did that this week. Also, just wanted to mention, because I don't know if it was mentioned before, but this morning Mitsuru talks to you and says she'll give you a reward if you do well on the exams.
Right. I think that was mentioned at some point.
I think so. Yeah, I just that came up again as a like. When I saw that, I just thought to myself, yep, that's why I'm spending so much time on academics. So Mitsuru gives me a little treat. That's what it's all for here, pretty much. But yeah, that was the afternoon.
So I couldn't get the old couple today. Apparently I said an answer wrong or something. So I went to the shrine. I didn't realize you can just copy a card for free every day without spending time. So I did that, and now I'm going to probably be doing that more often now.
Yeah.
Because there's some cards that I have that I think I would like on some of my personas to some degree, and the fact that it is not free, it doesn't take time, and it doesn't cost money seems really like I should just be doing that pretty much every day.
Yeah.
And then since I hadn't done this is one of the few things I haven't spent time on still. I gave $1,000 to the shrine as a way to see what that was like and get some more academics. So I gave $1,000. It gave me 2 academics points, and I went, neat.
Nice. Yeah, it's an option. I didn't use it a ton, but I do know it can be very beneficial to use. But yeah, it's there as another option.
That evening, I think we both did the evenings the same for the next couple of days, which is, this is the first time that Akihiko or Kirijo kind of tells you that she'd help you study, right? She can give you her notes from the year before, because she's older than you, and give you a study session. And this is the first of 3 this week. In the evenings, there's some people studying in the dorm table in the common area, and you can go up to them and you get a special little fun scene. I think even if even not caring wildly about trying to hit level 3 academics, I think I would always do these scenes because they're just fun, right?
Yeah, again, it's one of those things where, and without spoiling it too much, you'll have a lot of time with the night things that you'll end up needing to do, so using them on these when you get what I think are really fun character moments are so worth it. Even if you don't need the academics at that time, you likely will most of the time, but it's so worth doing. This one's really cute. This one is between Mitsuru and Akihiko, studying with you. And yeah.
Mitsuru gives you her old notes. Akihiko is training like Midoriya in My Hero Academia, where he's squatting above the chair rather than sitting in it. Actually, this is a question that came up for me. Were these scenes, Jonathan, you might not know this, were these scenes in the original as well, these study scenes?
I don't know. I'm going to Google real quick because I can, but and probably should for this one. I think some of them are prudentially new, but I don't know for sure.
Because if this scene is old, then actually Midoriya is training like Akihiko in My Hero Academia rather than the other way around. That's all I'm saying. But if they're new, then I think they got some inspiration from My Hero. That's all. Anyway, it's a fun scene.
I do think it's also really cute when you don't know that's what he's doing at first. So you're just getting these pained expressions and it's like, what's wrong with him? He's training two ways. He's using his time effectively. I don't know for sure. It seems like there is some implication they are new based on a quick Google search, but
the comments will let us know.
We do have people who have played, so you just tell us rather than me trying to make a guess off of my Google results.
Do we need to cancel Jonathon again? That is the question.
I'm just saying, give Red Bull to kids and the requests are new. That's... Can't wait for that to be clipped out. No, I think they're well worth taking, even if you don't need the academics at that point in time. This one's fun. We have some of the other ones to talk about. I did also like this one in particular is very meta to me because they're talking about how we're all given the same amount of time. It matters what you do with it. Efficiency is key. You can kind of talk about that as a philosophy for playing these games, about how you feel with the time you use. I thought it was a very cute scene that way.
Yeah. Moving on to the 16th, second to last day of this week. Akihiko catches up with you before class and starts talking to you outside the school. And this is where he mentions he has to get back in shape. He ran there rather than taking the monorail because he'll be available to you again to go into Tartarus once midterms are over, which is super exciting. I was very, very glad to see this confirmed, have that hunch confirmed. And I'm glad they give you a heads up, although it feels like, again, they really let you linger. They really did not, make a big deal out of when he was going to get back until this moment where it's only, 2 days before. And one of them, I think you can't go to Tartarus on either of these days anyway.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that how long they wait to tell you this.
I feel like there are probably different arguments I would make depending on what I was trying to argue, but I think there's an argument to be made that maybe the game is sometimes too lax about some elements of it. But also I appreciate the naturalness of that, hey, this is just life is going on. Sometimes things happen. Sometimes people are ready. Sometimes they're not. You'll find out when you do. There's something interesting to that. It probably is a little bit more old school. It's definitely a little less handholdy, but I like something to it in the nature of a game like this that is about just, hey, you don't know what day to day is going to be like, really.
Yeah. So what did you do during the afternoon? Oh, I'm sorry. There was also the math teacher is talking about weird complex formulas and you can stay awake or not. I chose to stay awake.
I did as well. I'm on that academics grind. I hung out with the old couple today. Okay.
So here's where I abandoned my philosophy all of a sudden.
Okay.
So I play this game alongside my wife, and my wife was like, I was going to go hang out with Maiko, I think. And then my wife was like, we should just try academics. And I was like, whatever, fine. And we'll reset, I guess, if it doesn't make any sense to, but we might as well just do a couple days of it. Sure. So I ate at Wakatsu this week.
Okay.
Or this day during the afternoon. And then you go to the evening.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't, that's when, she says that you can't go to, Mitsuru says you can't go to Tartarus today or tomorrow. And then you do this study group, this time with Junpei and Yukari. And Junpei just absolutely does not want to study. He's doing everything he can to just tell you really, really excellent, terrible jokes instead of studying. And Yukari calls him Stupei, which I thought was very fun.
I think everyone's been hanging around a little bit too much with Akutsuki because, the puns tonight are just really, really bouncing around. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I assume you did that as well.
I did too, yeah. It's again, a funny scene with people that you should care about because you're going to be spending a lot of time with them. But again, you don't have individual confidant lines with them. So that's in particular where I think these and the linked episodes are just so much great character building and character work that really influences how you probably will end up feeling about the team. But yeah, it's a cool one. You can get him to tell you a joke and then Yukari will be upset about it and you can say, tell me another. I want to keep hearing them.
Which joke did you pick?
This time around, I chose history.
Okay, I think it was arithmetic, the math one.
Okay, I forget. I think I might have chose math the first time around. I'd forget what the joke is. I don't know if you have it written down, but
I don't. But I remember it was very silly and stupid. I remember enjoying it quite a bit. His delivery, the voice actor's delivery of it is really great. He's delivering it like it's a lecture, and it's like serious the first half, and then pivots into just a terrible pun.
It's really well done. Yeah, the history one is about a career that ends up in ruins. Ruins history. They're fun. We haven't spoken about it a ton. I think we will more as we get through probably a lot more scenes with them. But I think the voice cast here is doing a really great job with this main crew. Yeah.
Excellent across the board so far.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's it for that evening. And we just go on to the 17th.
Let's go for it.
So the 17th, the shopping, this is the day off. It's a Sunday before the exams. Exams are the next day, last day of this week for us. The shopping channel is selling a home security kit, which I did buy, and I think the items are they seemed like 3 items that deal light damage or holy damage and 3 items that deal ice damage. Probably. We haven't seen them yet, but I'm assuming that's what they are. What did you do for the evening or for the afternoon?
For the day, I forget if you can hang out with Maya or other people.
I think you can hang out with Maya. Yeah.
Okay, I shirked those responsibilities because I need my academics up, and I ate at Wakatsu. Still not at level 3.
Wow. Okay. So you can also work at the movie theater today, which I almost did.
Yeah.
But my wife, God love her, said, let's go for it, and we can always reload if we need to. So I went to the shrine, and I spent 10,000 yen on 3 points of academics.
You got 3?
Yeah.
Nice, because I think it's a somewhat chance you can get 2.
It is, that's what I was looking, is there's a chance you can only get 2, and I was fully prepared to load if I only got 2, because that's a lot of money at this point in the game.
It's so much.
But no, I actually did get it on the first try. I didn't have to save scum that.
Hell yeah, that's amazing. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I got the 3 points, and then in the evening, there is a full group study session, which is so cute that all 4 of them are there with you doing this study section, where Junpei is just creepy. Just some creepy Junpei going, you smell that delicious smell from across the table, talking about the girls' perfumes.
Right in front of them.
Right in front of them. And then Akihiko's like, yeah, it smells so good. And he's talking about a beef bowl he's heating up.
Yeah, I think the joke payoff of it is really funny. It does not flatter Junpei in any way. I think the Akihiko being like, yeah, we're all talking about the beef bowl, and I think you can jump in there and be like, yeah, the food smells great. And Junpei's just left hanging out to dry as the one creepy dude. But my God, man, have just a little bit of sensibility of where you are. None. Just none.
It's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's a funny scene if he wasn't such a weirdo. And I do love that it's this group study session. I think that's very nice.
Yes. Yeah. So is this where your story is?
Yeah. So you get 3 music note points for this study session. Jonathan, did you hit level 3?
I did. Did you?
I did.
Oh my God. That is amazing.
I hit it on this. I got to level 3. Now, here's where the story gets even better.
Okay, go for it.
We said to ourselves, I was on the ground laughing because I was sure I was far away from it. I was sure I was not going to be able to get it. And then we said, you know what? 10,000 is so much. Let's reload the day and see if we can do it just like going to the movie theater and working at the movie theater and getting 1 point of academics instead of spending 10,000 to get 3.
Okay.
We did that, and we played through, and it wasn't enough.
Oh.
And then I said, okay, but we can eat at Wakatsu and get 2 points of academics, and then that'll be enough. And we reloaded, and we ate at Wakatsu, and it wasn't enough.
Oh, no.
We hit dead on the exact amount of academics points you needed, and the only way to do it, because I didn't want to reload multiple days and like go back and get 1 point on an earlier day. I didn't want to rewrite history that much, right? Yeah. So the only way to hit it with the situation we were currently in without reloading a bunch of days that I didn't want to reload was to spend 10,000 at the shrine, get 3, and then do that study session for the exact last point.
How many times did it take you the next time around? Did you get it in one again, or did you have to did you save
shrine?
That?
I saved. So when we knew we were like doing the 10,000 thing, I saved before the shrine, after the shrine.
Smart.
And
okay.
I kind of tried to stagger it there because I wanted to see.
Okay.
But literally, the save file that I'm using going forward is not rewritten in any way. It's
That's
the exact first try on all of that stuff throughout the week.
I was just so worried you were going to be like, and then we spent an hour reloading that save at the shrine to try to get 3 again. Thank God you had that saved. That is wild. You got the exact amount. I'm so angry at myself because of how much I've had to really specify that I'm doing this, and just on a whim, like props to your wife, obviously, for just the intuition there. Just the intuition to get you to 2 days beforehand be like, no, do this. I like to think that in the back of her head, she's like, we're going to show Jonathan he was an idiot this week. But no, it's just so funny where I have been like, I'm doing this. I'm making sure we're going to make it happen. I've spent 3 weeks prepping for this. And you're like, I just gave it a try and we got there.
I know, it's so lame.
It's great.
It's the most frustrating kind of beginner's luck in the history of history.
I love it. No, but I mean, absolute props to her also for just telling you to do the right thing there, like for just on a whim a couple days before.
I mean, like, I wanted to hit 3 if we could. I just literally thought, like, I even looked up what the gap from 2 to 3 was, the number of points. I won't say the exact, but you can look it up if you want. It's a decent amount more than the jump from 1 to 2 is what I would say. And so I just thought I was nowhere near it, right?
There were earlier days, if I'm thinking back on our playthrough, and obviously I can't remember every day off the top of my head, but I do think there were days where you would do stuff on the computer or study at the library because you were dirt poor, and I was just gallivanting around town doing my own things. And so I think
Jonathan just like immediately in his mind putting red strings between pins on a board.
There's got to be a reason.
What happened here?
I told you, I'm like Charlie in very specific moments, and this is one of those moments where I'm telling you, this is how I can work it out. It happened. No,
yeah. So
that's
literally, again, we didn't rewrite anything. This was 100%. I was fully prepared to be like, you know what? It was not worth the 10,000 if we're not going to hit 3 by that day.
Sure.
Which would have been even funnier if I hadn't done that, if I had just been like, no, and then the first time we get academics after midterms, we would have gotten a level up.
You would have felt so rough. Yeah.
Yeah. But literally it was the exact last opportunity, the last point of the last opportunity got it for me.
That's incredible. Also, just the fact that you proved it out. Like, you want to talk about a science project here. You perfectly tested out this hypothesis to make sure it proved out right. And you were right. That's crazy.
God,
I'm so happy it worked out.
It's nuts.
Yeah.
I'm glad. It was a very fun end of the week. It was a very, very sort of climactic end to this tale.
And now, as long as we both do great, we'll both be Mitsuru's favorite boys after midterms. Yeah. Well, congratulations.
And then, of course, thank you. And to you, too, because you got it as well. I'm sure you got it by like 2 points, right?
We'll say that, sure. Yeah, whatever makes me feel better for all the stress I've gone through.
And of course we get this final last little moment where Junpei just starts chanting beef multiple times. Just incredible. He's like, beef, beef, beef.
I just wrote down Junpei turns into a dummy.
Turns into. And Mitsuru's like, okay, if you get the next 5 questions right, I'll give you can eat your food. And then he just starts going, beef again. It's really good.
Yeah, again, huge shout out. To my knowledge, and I don't know the specifics, I think there are 1 or 2 where people have come back, but the main cast of like all the kids are new voice actors, but most of the original voice cast are back in the game in other roles.
Oh.
And so I think this new voice cast, obviously not knowing the original performances, and I'm sure, would love to hear from people out there about how they feel about the differences. I'm sure there are slight tweaks and things here and there, but I think everyone's doing a great job of depicting who these characters are based on this point in the game so far.
Yeah, I like what I've heard, right? And that is absolutely no slight to the originals, or if someone likes the originals more than this. I didn't actually realize that they had recast, and I'm sure that is disappointing to some longtime fans for, even if something is not worse, you get attached to a certain performance or a certain delivery of some of your favorite characters, and I totally get that. Yeah. But I'm liking them so far for sure.
Well, and then there's, especially with a game as beloved as this, there's a lot of pressure then for those voice actors to slip into roles that people have very specific ideas of who they are in their head. So I think in terms of not having that predisposition to know what these characters are supposed to quote unquote sound like of their original versions, I do think the Reload cast is doing a great job so far. It's really been fun to see.
Yeah. Well, that's the week. Next week we've got 5, I think, full days of exams, and then a couple days in between. And then the day that you get the exam results is going to be the final day that we cover, which is the 25th. So it's the 18th through the 25th. So once you've gotten your exam results and done the day where you get those, that'll be the last day.
Yeah, so slightly longer week, but kind of shorter amount of time you'll probably end up spending.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a shorter overall because the exam days are going to go quick.
Yeah, I would definitely say, we'll mention it again at the end of the show, but as we mentioned kind of last week, we obviously have some, but for everyone over at patreon.com/takeyourtime, we'll definitely have time, I think, next week for some more questions. We obviously have the back catalog of questions, but if you have anything else you want to ask so far, please feel free to drop those in on appropriate posts, and we'll include them in next week's show.
Do we have any questions today that we would like to take?
We do. We do have some questions and comments, both from last week's stuff, general feelings about the game so far, and whatnot. I'll start off with a question, and of course all of these came from the wonderful folks over at patreon.com/takeyourtime. Starting with Guthrie, who asked, what are your thoughts on interactions with Igor so far in the game compared to your initial reactions with him in Persona 5? Would also love to know your thoughts on Elizabeth versus Caroline and Justine. Without going too much into spoilers, I think, especially because we're earlier in the game, and for those who might not have played Persona 5, don't want to talk about too much of the specifics on those characters right now.
Sure.
But yeah, I would be curious to hear from you. I think I obviously have the background of where the rest of the game goes with them, so I'm curious on, especially from an introductory place, how you're feeling about Igor and Elizabeth so far.
They are sort of, Elizabeth seems neat. I like her conversations when you're completing requests. That's fun. She has some personality to her. Igor is just very there right now. Like, he has a much bigger role in 5. And obviously, if you've played 5 without getting into spoilers there, you know why eventually he has this larger role at the start. I think it makes sense that in this game, kind of like everything in this game, he's sort of slimmed down, is streamlined in what his role is. I'm interested, I should say, to see kind of how they come into it more. But right now they feel very sort of just mechanical. Like they feel like the thing you need to get your persona management rather than a part of the plot for any reason yet.
Yeah, they are certainly more tertiary at this point, where it is... Yeah. Igor has basically just said, hey, I'm going to see you a couple times, and this is what the Velvet Room is. This is how Persona work. Goodbye. Whereas, to your point, I think the joy of Elizabeth, and I think there's a lot we'll be able to talk about as the game goes on, without spoiling too much, I really like Elizabeth. I think they're great, and especially as you see more of them through the requests, I think... if you want to get more of a sense of Elizabeth and have some fun with that character depiction, do not put off the requests, not just because they'll start to really pile up. There are obviously the time-limited ones. You should do those as quickly as you can. A lot of those are pretty simple, but do those as quick as you can. Don't feel bad if you maybe need to look up a guide for one or two. I've done that. It's all right. But you get a lot of really fun. There are so many requests, and there is so much great dialogue written for Elizabeth that really gives a sense of this otherworldly character who is trying to learn the ways of Earth, like the fish out of water kind of sensation. Works really well there.
Totally.
And especially in comparison, I think we can talk more toward the end. Caroline and Justine are interesting because at the end of the day, they had a very like combative relationship with you in 5 for a lot of it. And it created this very different dynamic. Whereas Elizabeth, at least right now, almost sees you as just like a fact-finding expedition. Like you're a means to an end for them as much as they are for you. And so I think there's an interesting dichotomy there, whereas there was a little bit of a difference in personality with Caroline and Justine, but I think we can probably touch on that more as we go further along. But yeah.
Yeah, I also like them to a certain extent. This is one way that I think Persona 3 being streamlined is an absolute benefit over P5 is, oh my god, the Velvet Room got boring in P5. Where you would just have these repetitious conversations saying the same thing over and over. And Caroline and Justine would just make the same jokes about calling you inmate over and over and over again, right? And so the fact that these are just quicker, a little lighter, a little, fluffier is fine with me right now. I'm very okay with it because I feel way less bogged down anytime I need to talk to them or go into the Velvet Room.
Yeah, it is, to your point earlier, it is very mechanical almost, but I'm not upset about that because it does feel... No. Let me just get through this part of the game because it is a lot more inventory management and stat consideration and all that sort of stuff. And so I almost like that their personalities right now fall a little bit more into the background with it. But yeah.
But I'm excited, like you said, I'm excited to get more of these requests done to have more conversations.
Yeah, I don't know the exact best way. I'll have to think about it a little bit, knowing the extent of them. I think maybe we'll want to do every so often check-ins on the requests, but there's some fun, silly things to talk about there for sure.
Cool.
Yeah. Akechi as a jelly bean also wrote in just with some feelings about the game so far. Mostly wanted to mention these. One, to see if it spurs any thoughts for you on your end of things we haven't talked about, but also just to get more of a sense of where listeners and viewers are. Akechi as a jelly bean wrote, things I really like about the game so far, how the S.E.E.S team feel like a group of people thrust together and not BFFs forever. The general design and animation that plays when you get a weaker critical. I get a hit of serotonin every time it happens. I love that there aren't 25 texts from the team before and after every mission asking if we did the right thing. Asking, was it okay that we stopped the baddie McBad from eating babies or whatever? There was a lot of Joker codependency going on in P5 that I'm happy to skip. I like that we just get a daily thought bubble from the gang. Akihiko and the way he obsessively massages his boxing gloves. And then things I'm not so fond of. The protagonist, love his design, but the way he enables all the confidants to do whatever they want, even if it's questionable, but is otherwise very passive stoic, feels a bit off for me. I felt like Joker had a distinct baseline character that you could see if you didn't want to self-insert, and just let me save more, Atlas. But, yeah, I think for me...
Yeah, I don't disagree with any of that.
No, go ahead. Didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that was just saying.
Fair enough. I think there is something that's really interesting too, and we'll talk about it as we get more into specifics, but a lot of the confidant lines here are, yeah, you go do your thing. Go ahead. Great job. Even if it's a thing where I'm like, hold on now. What are we talking about here? So It's Makoto, for just the baseline character name, I think is definitely more passive as it relates to everything that's going on so far. Which is a choice. It's different. It is funny because I think at the beginning of the game we were talking about, I would argue Joker is a pretty non-character, like a bit self-insert, but boy, does it feel like Joker has so much more personality than Makoto because of the way the relationships are designed and everything.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, I do, we didn't talk about it a ton, but, and also in terms of Tartarus, it's always so satisfying to get the critical attack, the all-out attack in. It is still such a satisfying mechanic, even though I've done it hundreds of times now. And every time you summon a persona and you have that incredible sort of still glass, like
it's beautiful.
The bespoke little pieces of animation, there's more gameplay stuff we'll talk about in the future. I just think they found really great moments to emphasize that stuff beautifully.
Totally.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you want to do one more? Or is that all we got time for?
I got one more comment,
Cool.
based on last week. Brody had mentioned, because I think it's interesting to mention here after our criticisms of the boss fight. Brody said, I feel like the quality of the boss fights differs extremely depending on what difficulty you're also playing on. In my experience, I found the High Priestess to be an extremely fun and stressful fight. Adding in the minions in the latter half of the fight helps shake up the fight by making you decide what enemy to target, targeting the boss and risk the enemy, and boss attacks taking you out, or a party member, or target the minions and risk running out of time. Brody mentions they were playing on Merciless, and in parentheses, not trying to make a subtle flex, by the way, play whatever difficulty you find fun. And besides affecting damage values in this boss fight, the last stage actually only gives you 2.5 minutes instead of a bit less than 5. So definitely more pressure there for sure. And I think, there's
makes it actually more kind of significant that the clock actually matters necessarily.
I think we've said before, you're playing on normal, right?
Yeah, I'm playing on whatever the default is.
Yeah, I am as well, just for time consideration and all that, but I would like to maybe test out Merciless at some point just to see how merciless it actually is. But yeah.
Sure. And yeah, that's totally fair. I mean, that is one of my complaints with this boss, was that it was just sort of mindless and easy. So to add challenge to it, I think makes sense that it would become more interesting.
Totally. But yeah, thank you to everyone who wrote in. Again, we've got some questions stockpiled, but if you want to send in some more, especially for next week when we have time, patreon.com/takeyourtime. Thank you to everyone who's been contributing.
All right, let's wrap things up with our pop quiz for the week. I decided to pick one that is technically an optional thing, but is probably everyone saw it, which is from the arcade, because we are all there with Junpei. So, here is the question for you. There are 3 sort of distinct arcade machines that you can see behind you. The names of those arcade games are Super Arcade Game, Super Game Space Shot, and Very Interesting Game. But there's also another phrase written on each machine. So the question is, what other phrase is also written on each machine?
Is it the same phrase, or are you asking
for the same? Okay. The same. There's an identical phrase written on all 3 machines.
Okay, I was like, is this a partial credit thing, or?
No.
Okay.
So what is that phrase on all 3 machines? You can leave your answer at youtube.com/journology in the comments, or at takeyourtime.com. Wait, no, patreon.com/takeyourtime, that one. Or you can email journology@gmail.com, or you can send us messages on social medias. He's at JM Dornbush. I'm at Tom R. Marks. Wherever you can, let us know what you're feeling. If you're enjoying the show, please subscribe to whatever platform you're listening to or watching on. Leave a like, leave a rate, review the show, do whatever. It really does help us out, helps more people find the show, and we want to continue growing the community in that way. Again, if you want the show a day early, you want bonus episodes each month, you want ad-free, whatever, patreon.com/takeyourtime is the place to check it out. Jonathan, any other last things?
I think I forgot to tell you one important bit of information I found out this week.
Oh, yes?
There is no Pepe Sylvia.
I'm cutting you off. That's all the time we have for today. Thank you, everyone, for joining us as always, and we will see you next week.